The Sports Lodge with Roger Lodge. Here on Angels Radio and the Angels Radio app.
Hey, welcome back to Sports Lodge on a Tuesday. Really appreciate you being here. Can we go with this? Can we make it official that UCLA is hiring James Madison head coach Bob Chesney, 48 years young, good-looking dude, good energy, has done a terrific job at James Madison. He seems like an L.A. guy. He's got that charm, that personality, and he's a winner. 11-1. He's about to play in the Sun Belt Conference title game. And believe it or not, James Madison still has a shot to make the college football playoff. Bob Chesney getting a 5-year deal in Westwood after going 20-5 at James Madison. Before that, he was 44-21 at Holy Cross. Holy Cross had a football team. Who knew? Unreal. So congratulations to the newest UCLA Bruin head coach, Bob Chesney, joining me to discuss. We love talking to our gridiron guru. He's our friend Mark Schipper. How are you, sir?
Roger, what's happening? I'm doing great. How about yourself out there?
Doing well. We got about 70 and sunny. What are you looking at today?
I'm looking at about 22 and snowy out the window here in Chicago, so a very similar situation.
Did you did you have to shovel this morning to get in your car?
No, luckily I got an indoor garage parking spot, and the city gets out there with the plows and the salt. So I watch them do the work, and I'm just a beneficiary. Though my tax dollars do pay for it, so I'm glad I'm getting a little bit of value out of those.
Well, apparently UCLA has done some work. They did some research, and they landed on Bob Chesney as their new head football coach. What are the Bruins getting in James Madison head coach Bob Chesney?
Well, what I like about him is he is a proven winner, a proven program builder, and he's a guy who's had success everywhere he's been and at every level. So I always like professionals who come up from a lower stage and rise to the top stage, because I think at those lower levels you work with smaller budgets, fewer resources, fewer opportunities, and I think you have to learn to be clever and intelligent and have a lot of foresight in terms of what you're doing. And all those things, when you can do that with fewer resources and you win and you continue to get promoted up the ladder, all of those things that worked at the lower levels work at the upper levels, but now you have more resources, more opportunities, et cetera. So Chesney he's rebuilt programs. He's taken over good programs and made them better. He's taken over great programs and sustained them. So the guy has a track record of success, and he has a tremendous amount of experience, which in my opinion is exactly what UCLA needed at this point. They didn't need somebody to learn on the job at this level. They needed a guy who could come in and get moving.
And Mark, is this along the same lines as maybe a director in Hollywood that's just starting out? He's directing small budget movies. He's staying under budget. He's doing a great job. The film turns out great. And then some studio says, hey, let's give this guy a shot with a bigger budget. Is it the same type of deal?
Yeah, it's something like that. It is, because it's a difference in resources, and it's a difference in access and opportunities. And I believe when you can do it well with less, all of those skills that you build up, all of those lessons that you learn, all of the creativity that you have to demonstrate to be able to do more with less, that instills a certain value system in you, and it translates when you get more resources. Whereas, some people who start with immense resources, they think it's that same way everywhere. They overspend. They don't feel the need to be creative, et cetera. So, yeah, I think it is something like that when you can show an ability on a lower level, and they say this person is responsible, this person is successful, let's give them the bigger budget and see what they can do. I do think those skill sets translate, and I think that metaphor works.
Okay, what about Chesney here as far as the Bruins allowing him to coach in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game? That's the word on the street. So let's say they win this thing. They win the Sun Belt. let's say somehow, some way they sneak in to the college football playoff. That playoff does not start until December the 19th. We know the Bruins are going to let him coach in the Sun Belt Conference title game. What about in the college football playoff? Would the Bruins allow him to move even further into the college football playoff?
Yeah, James Madison is going to need a little help to get into the college football playoff, but if that does happen, that's an interesting question. It's a different situation than something like we've seen with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss and LSU. You know, James Madison is a smaller conference and a sort of a tier down in the competition within Division I. So it's not quite the same situation. I think they'd probably leave it up to Chesney. And depending on what's going on with the team, I don't have enough inside information on the program at JMU to be able to say what he'd want to do. But I would think Chesney moving to UCLA would probably want to get to Westwood. He'd probably want to allow his assistants to move on with the rest of the playoff scenario and let that play out and then make a decision on them at UCLA afterward. But you know, they'd cross that bridge when they come to it. I could make arguments either way for letting him finish it out or having him say, you know what, I'm going to get up to Westwood and get started, and I'll let my assistants finish the run at JMU.
How wide was the net that Martin Jarmon, the athletic director, and guys like Bob Myers and Casey Wasserman cast out there amongst the available coaches?
You know, I don't have a lot of good information on that. You know, I'm finishing up with my book over here, and fortunately for me right now, I don't have to break news for the LA Times like Ben Bolk or anybody else at the big newspaper, so I didn't have to have my feelers out at all times to know where they're going with this search. It took a while, but I have heard that Chesney was one of the candidates very early on, and they wanted to talk to him early, so you know, how big the file was initially in terms of the people they wanted to check out and how quickly Chesney showed reciprocal interest. I'll have to piece that together later, but I do not believe that Chesney was down the list. I think he was near the top of the list. So I would say that it appears UCLA had early success getting the guy they wanted on the phone, and there was mutual interest, and it moved from there. That's my understanding at this point.
Mark, we always hear things like, oh, well, the NFL is better when the Raiders are good, or Major League Baseball is better when the Yankees are making a run. Give me the team in the Big Ten that just has to be good to make the conference better.
You know, it's kind of a boring answer, but probably Michigan. Ohio State's always good. I mean, even Ohio State's down years are usually pretty good years for any other program. Michigan rubs not that Ohio State doesn't have its own enemy and haters, but Michigan seems to be a very polarizing university in a lot of ways, and it's a very successful university academically and athletically. And so, you know, when you say, like, the sport's better when they're good, you hear that often about, like, the Miami Hurricanes. When the Hurricanes are good, college football is a more interesting product, and that's because of how polarizing the Hurricanes are. Some people love to see them win. Some people love to see them lose and hate to see them win, and that sort of drives energy and participation. So I would say, you know, Michigan kind of plays the big bad wolf role in the Big Ten, and when they're good, a lot of interest is generated, and plenty of it negative, people who want to see Michigan fail. So that's kind of, I'd kind of answer it that way.
Latest college football playoff poll has Michigan at number 15 with a 9-3 record. For the folks listening that aren't familiar, right now your top 12, Miami, BYU, Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas Tech, Georgia, Texas A&M, Indiana, and Ohio State. What team did I just reel off in the top 12 and you said to yourself, wait a minute, they shouldn't be in there?
In the top 12, you know, the top 12 is seeded pretty well at this point. You know, there isn't really, I would I could make an argument for Notre Dame maybe climbing higher. They have those early losses, which are hurting the Irish a little bit. BYU is right on the fringe. If BYU doesn't win the Big 12 championship, they're probably out, despite sitting at with a one-loss record right now. So the committee, for all their weirdness, has actually done a fairly good job this year.
Do you think this is where we're going to stay with this whole college football playoff thing, the way it's currently in place, or would you like to see something different?
Well, yeah, man, that's a tough question. They talk about the 2014 expansion, and it sounds crazy and it sounds outlandish and like, oh, it'd destroy everything. But I can see an argument for that expansion only to rejuice the early bowl games with those higher seeds or lower seeds, however you want to look at it, the 20s and above, et cetera. I could see that as a way to give a lot more juice to the early bowl games, a lot more interest, because their elimination games might draw bigger crowds, et cetera. But if you're talking about a big change, something that I would like to see, I would love to see this sport reshuffled along geographic lines, like our original conferences were, built on geographic sanity, regionality, rivalry. I would love to see the country broken up like that, get much smaller conferences, let everybody play each other, get clear winners, and play a national tournament in that fashion with, regional winners facing off and moving through the bracket until you get to your national championship game. I think that's the way college football was built and meant to work. And these 18-team mega leagues are really making the playoff seem like a less functional idea than it is. But the problem with the huge leagues is half the schools in a conference don't even play each other. So we're not even sure who the best team in a conference is. We're not sure who a true champion is, et cetera. So going forward, that's what I would like to see is the entire format restructured into a much more sane geographical order.
Some really good comments right there from our gridiron guru here in the Sports Lodge. He's Mark Schipper on Twitter or X at Fifth Down CFB. We started our conversation regarding Bob Chesney, who gets the UCLA job. He wouldn't have taken that job, Mark, unless he had a commitment of a certain amount of NIL money. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, in this day and age, absolutely. You need a pledge of revenue share and resources at the P4 level if you're going to take a job, and unless you don't care, you're waiting to get fired and take that big buyout money.
And by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Lane Kiffin and the way you think that whole thing played out and the way Lane Kiffin handled it. Yeah,
I think he handled it terribly, and he. All that work he did to rejuvenate his reputation and what people thought about his character and who he was as a person, I think he basically undid all of it. And people look at it as same old Lane, the same kind of man-child we've known forever. And things that he brought on himself, decisions he made for himself, that he then tried to blame others for, namely Ole Miss's athletic director. He wouldn't let me coach in the playoff, et cetera. I think college football's calendar is very bad right now. It's not organized in a logical fashion. So Kiffin is behind the eight ball from that perspective. But it was still his choice to say to the suitors, LSU, Florida, listen, I'm going to coach this team to the end of the season. Let's talk then. I'm going to see this through with my guys. But he tried to have it all ways at once. He was going to have contract negotiations. He was going to take a new job. And he was going to coach his old team, who happened to be a ferocious divisional rival from time immemorial. And he was going to be able to do two things at once. It was an insane idea from Lane, and it blew up in his face. So, can't begrudge him going to LSU, but I thought he handled it poorly.
Yeah, I think that exit is going to linger for quite a while. Mark Schipper at Fifth Down CFB on X. Hey, real quick, though, what's this book you're talking about?
Yeah, it's my college football book. Set off on a national odyssey a few years ago. I went to many of the sport's best rivalry games, and my contention is that college football is uniquely placed in American history and culture. And after the Civil War in this country, you can't tell the story of the United States without including college football in some fashion. So I set out to do that and tell the story of kind of where the sport came from and where it's headed during a revolutionary period. So it's been a long project. I'm getting close to the end, so I'm just writing like hell on that thing.
Well, good luck with that. We'll have to have you back on to discuss it even further. Mark Schipper, everybody, truly appreciate the time. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Always great to talk to you, Roger. We'll talk again soon, all right?